Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Today we hear from Amy Lucas on her experience having graduated from UCSD as a structural engineering major with Aerospace Focus. She shares her retrospect on attending UCSD. We learn the way she landed her full-time position with Collins. She shares deep insights about her co-presidency of SHPE UCSD position. We travel back and learn how she decided to attend college and how she elected to come to UCSD. Learn how her parents' involvement and encouragement play such an important role in having successful students. Let's get started. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a special guest, a recent structural engineering student who just graduated from UCSD. She had an internship with Collins. She was the recent co-president for SHPE UCSD. She has successfully just landed a full-time position with Collins, but currently she is taking some time to be with her family in the Los Angeles area after 4 long, hard years at UCSD. Welcome, Amy Lucas, to Success Innovation. How are you doing today?
Thank you for the intro, and I'm doing pretty well. I have a work day today, so I'm just trying to enjoy this interview before I have to start going back to the building that I'm working my project on. But it's going pretty well so far. It's only the morning, so the full day is still ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for doing this with me. Let's get started then. I won't take too much of your time. Did I miss anything? Do you want to share anything additional about yourself? And also, if you don't mind sharing 2 main core values that you have.
Yeah, you got most of it. I was also a RA, which stands for a residential assistant for the past 2 years here at UC San Diego. And I am a first gen, and my 2 core values would be growth, in any aspect, whether it's educational, personal, and family. Those would be my 2 core values.
Awesome. Thank you. So I mentioned, and we know that you just graduated with a structural engineering, and congratulations on getting a full-time position with Collins, right? But I want you to tell us, well, first of all, what does it feel like to have graduated and have gone through that whole process of going to college and now you're stepping into the real world. So how does that feel at the moment for you?
It feels pretty surreal. I feel like the moment I walked across the stage when I was graduating, it's like the past 4 years just came back in a flash, and it made me really emotional. It was something that this journey for me, I have had my ups and downs, like I'm sure every other student has. Um, so I felt really proud of myself, and to be able to rest after graduation, it felt really nice and really rewarding, especially just being able to be back with my family. I know that they were really excited for me, and they were a really big support system for me. So it's been really nice to relax, as I said, and I was looking for a job, so that part was a big part of post graduation, but I am obviously now, as you mentioned, I was able to get a full-time offer, which it did make me really happy to see my work pay off and be fortunate enough to have found something pretty quickly after graduation. So I'm really just in a state of gratitude with everything that's happened in my life for the past 4 years.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're pretty excited and really, really grateful for everything that's been going on in the last couple of weeks, maybe the last couple of months, right? And honestly, it's a quote unquote culmination to say the least at the moment of, you go through the 4 years or 4.5 or whatever it is for some people. But for you, it was 4. So congratulations in that. And to finish it off with, getting a full-time position in an engineering corporation, stepping into the industry with an amazing salary, right? That's really, really, really great to hear, and it's a success story, to be honest, right? So let's go back, and I want you to go back to when you were in high school, right? That little Amy Lucas, when she was in high school, she was, a senior in high school. Let's go to that time frame. And at that point, everybody's applying for colleges, and everybody's like buzzing over, okay, did you take the SATs or AP test or whatever it is that senior year takes place, right? And all of a sudden, you're faced with this decision of how do I go about applying to college? And how I want you to tell us, how did you end up deciding to go to college? And in particular, how did you choose UCSD?
Yeah, so my mom, since before me, my sisters, my mom knew that she was going to instill the importance of education in us, and she did that with me. Even since middle school, I remember the day of first day of school, she just sat with me in the car and she told me how what she saw for my future, and I think that really inspired me to work as hard as I could to achieve that. And so when it came to my senior year, we were in COVID, so we were doing Zoom. We weren't in person for most of the year. Um, and so, because prior to that, my mom had joined this educational little group for Hispanic parents or any parent that wanted to learn more about what it would take for a student or a parent to support going to a higher education, such as like a four-year university. Um, my mom joined it and she kind of helped me know maybe to talk to my counselor about this because my counselor was the one who was leading it. So she's like, you should ask your counselor when it came to having any questions regarding applications. Also, my sisters, I was lucky enough to be the youngest sibling, so I was able to ask them for help. Um, and I did do all the AP classes that I could. I made sure that I was really active with my community involvement. It was just something that, for me, I liked being part of clubs. I liked being giving back to the community. So doing it and somehow it also helped with my college applications. It was really nice because it didn't feel like something I had to do, but rather something I wanted to do. And so I applied to all the universities that I wanted to. And when I wanted to open all the decisions at the same time. And so I was waiting for all of them to come in. And one day I was just looking through my email and I kind of just saw congratulations from UC San Diego. And I was like, oh, so I kind of figured it out without, um, I opened my email and I was like, okay, well, like I was happy because it was like the first, college decision that I had gotten back. And so that was kind of funny to me because unexpectedly it was like I feel like it was like the universe being like, this is where you're gonna go. It's just like a little hint. But and when I came to tour UCSD, my parents they told me that my face lit up and that I was just like walking around like super happy, almost like skipping a little bit. And I was just taking videos and like showing my sisters through FaceTime, like, oh my gosh, like look at this fountain near Target. Like there's a Target on campus. And so they knew from that moment that I would come to UCSD. And it's been really rewarding. I think I just, like I said, I'm in a state of gratitude. And just looking back, I always had that support from my parents and my family, and I think that's really carried me along and been my motivation to keep going throughout the process through high school and college.
Awesome, awesome. So, the universe kind of told you this is where you're going. Obviously, for our audience, when you get acceptance letters now, they come through email. Before, it was literally a big package if you actually got accepted, or a small little envelope if you was a rejection. So you kind of had an idea of what it was, right? But now with emos is literally you don't know unless you kind of have that preview window, and all of a sudden you say congratulations, and the confetti pops up. So all of a sudden it's good news, right? So awesome. Um, I want you to tell us. Obviously you're finished with structural engineering, but when you were in high school, and I want you to go back to that place of trying to figure yourself out. Your mom sat you down in the car and she told you, "This is what I see in your future." She told you you're gonna be a professional, you're gonna go to school, university, and I want you to have a good job. But I don't know if she was very specific and she said structural engineering, but I want you to walk us through, and for the audience also, there might be some individuals who are actually trying to figure out what's my path, what career path am I really going to take. How did you, Amy Lucas, decide that you wanted to be an engineer? Was it something that you knew from the very beginning when you started high school, when you were a senior in high school? Because by that time, when you actually apply, you have to select and declare a major. More specifically, how did you hone in on getting and being a structural engineer at UCSD?
Yeah, so for background, my family come like my aunts, my parents, they had laborist jobs, so they didn't have um, a job indoors inside of a building. And so I was really surrounded by that. And when I remember when I was in elementary school, we had to do that. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Or who do you see yourself being? Um, and one of my friends in my classroom, they wrote an engineer. And I was like, I remember being like, what's that? I was like, I don't know what that is. Because every other person put like a firefighter or a singer. And so when I saw engineer, I remember that moment. And then going into high school, we had a family friend who was a civil engineer. He was about to graduate from Cal Poly Slow. And so we were at a family gathering, and when he started talking to me, he knew that I was soon to be in the timeline to apply to colleges. And so he asked me what my current thought process was in what I wanted to be majoring in. And I had a conversation with him. He really asked me about what courses I liked, whether I was a hands-on person, whether I was a creative person. And when I answered the questions of math, science, problem solving, and kind of I just basically answered questions like that. He told me that engineering was something that I could be interested in. And I had also been taking AP courses. I took AP Comp Sci my senior year as well. And I remember I loved that class. I always kind of made a joke that I would if if it wasn't civil or structural engineering, I would be computer science. So it kind of just like reinstated that feeling of engineering is where I wanted to go because those are the classes that I found most enjoyable. And even when I was maybe having a hard time with the project or an assignment, I still found a way to make sure that it worked and being curious. And I liked how engineering, based on what he explained, allowed me to do exactly that, to learn more and maybe come up with something that would solve a problem. And so he led me towards civil engineering. And so I was like, yeah, like that sounds pretty cool. And so then when I started applying, I noticed that UCSD specifically didn't have civil engineering, they had structural engineering. And my sister was like, structural and civil should are like the exact same thing. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I saw that they had a civil engineering focus. So I was like, okay, like this is where I'm going to be applying, or this is exactly what I'm going to be applying for at UCSD. And obviously, I'm not civil focused. I went the aerospace route.
Right.
And that was because I, the feeling of when a plane is about to take off, I love that feeling. It feels like the world is on the tip of your fingers. I also saw in movies that I would watch how, whether it was airplanes or any type of aviation, it connects people and it brings people together. And I think that feeling really caught my attention. And so aerospace was also just something that caught my interest as soon as I knew that it was an option. When I took my first SE course here at UCSD, they mentioned all the focuses, and aerospace did catch my attention. So from there, I rerouted what my plan was originally, and so I became a structural engineering with the aerospace focus. So yeah, that's really my path with how I decided to be an engineer and how I went from civil to aerospace. And it's really nice. And I would say if anyone is currently maybe unsure of what they want to major in, my school also had these co-curricular classes. I believe that's what it's called, CCR. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, co-curricular. And then I can't remember what the R stands for, but they really allow you to dip your feet into what a potential career path would look like. And so I personally didn't take the engineering one, but I would say my computer science and my physics, AP physics classes, um, they really kind of showed me what I would potentially be experiencing. And so I would definitely recommend that. I know that they're offered during the school year. And so that would be my advice because I feel like if I would have taken an engineering one, it definitely would have been like, okay, yes, this is what I would like to do. And I also actually did take one for sports medicine, which at one point was something that I thought I would want to do. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I had fun. But then I realized I think this might not be what I want to do. And luckily, I got that experience and I learned maybe this isn't what I want to do before I committed entirely. And so, yeah, I do have good experiences with those classes. And that would be my advice to anyone who might be wondering what they want to do or what they might want to major in.
Thank you, Amy. That's a great explanation. Obviously, when we're trying to decide, and as we're growing up and experimenting and exploring through those classes, the CCRs that you mentioned, right? If your school or your high school actually does have some of those classes, go ahead and try to take those. However, I'm assuming, and this is my assumption, a lot of people actually have obstacles and or situations that are a little bit difficult. And I want to ask you, Amy, did you ever experience any obstacles when you were one in high school trying to decide, trying to apply to universities and or at UCSD when you were taking courses? Did you have any obstacles, any roadblocks that you thought, man, this is really difficult, unsurmountable, and all of a sudden, fast forward to now, you've accomplished them. So it means that you either went through it, were able to go around it, and figure out a solution for it. Can you walk us through one example of an obstacle and or a roadblock that you encountered, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I would say to be completely transparent, my freshman year of college, I remember I came in with the mindset of college would be exactly like high school. Because in high school, when it came to taking tests or homework assignments, I knew that I was able to maybe do an assignment in a day and that I would get it done. I would get a good grade. And so I was really used to this high school environment of getting a good grade. And so when I came into college, I was like, okay, college is going to be the exact same. And when I took my first math class, I got my first exam grade back, and it was nothing of what I expected it to be. It was really a wake up call for me, and kind of just I had to realize that I had to be different and change my learning habits and maybe studying habits from high school to college. And I think a lot of people experienced this as I was able to meet more friends in college. They told me the same thing where they were like, I study nothing like I used to study like in high school. And so they really had to make that change. And for me, my math class, my first quarter here at UCSD, it really challenged me in a way that I was learning I was learning a different way of processing information that the professor was giving us because his teaching style was different than what I was used to. And so having to adapt to that, it made me feel like I wasn't worthy enough to be here at UCSD because I was like, no, like I don't get it. I'm not getting the results I want, even though I'm putting in the effort. And so it was a really hard quarter for me. And I remember I tried to keep it to myself because I didn't want my family to think that I was struggling and I knew that they would want to be there for me. And so I was just like trying to keep it in within myself. But ultimately, I didn't pass the class, which was really hard for me as a freshman in my first quarter. I remember crying the day I got my grade back. And that winter quarter, I really just was really disappointed in myself. And so I was stressing about how my 4-year plan would change because obviously when you go in, they have a 4-year plan set for you. And I remember at the time, they were basically saying that I couldn't get into the class again and that I would have to wait 2 quarters. And so it was a really stressful time for me. I was starting to be like, no, like I'm gonna have to take another year or I won't be able to take enough classes to count for financial aid, which I was using. And so it was a really stressful time from November to early January. But when I kind of calmed down and thought about what I could do and what was within my range of control, I met with my counselor here in the SE department and also with the UCSD department, and they really helped guide me through. I was able to end up taking the class again. Um, and in the moment, it did feel like I was like, oh my gosh, I was probably the only person who didn't pass a class this quarter. And so that was a really heavy feeling to carry, especially because I had gone in with the expectations of college is going to be easy. I'm going to be able to keep the same habits that I kept in high school. Um, but I definitely took it as a learning experience, and I was determined to change from then on because I didn't want to repeat that feeling, and I knew that I could do better. And maybe it was just something that I had to experience my first quarter to set the tone for the rest of the 4 years that I would be here. And so, yeah, I would say that is an obstacle that I ran into during my time here at UCSD. But I learned a lot from it, and it kind of just showed me that I'm capable of more. And if I am struggling, I knew to speak out to my professors or just go to those extra office hours and really make sure that I was able to understand a topic and not just give up.
Thank you. That's a very important piece of information. Yes, a lot of students actually go into their first year of college thinking it's going to be exactly like high school, which is a big difference, right? And I'm glad that you brought that up because it is a huge obstacle that a lot of students face, and they, like yourself, do not know how to ask for help, right? Or be transparent or indicate I'm really having a difficult time. This is what's going on. Why? Because throughout high school, they've been used to studying the night before, rushing to do their projects the day before it's due or the day of, or the exams are, multiple choice, or the teacher in high school actually lets you get extra credit some other way to be able to supplement for anything that you might be missing. So that creates a system of codependence in that sense, right? And when you actually come to a 4-year university, in particular to UCSD, you told us it's a quarter system. A quarter system's rough. It's really fast. The first day of class, if you didn't read the syllabus and the first chapter or 2 chapters, you're pretty much behind. If you miss a class or 2 classes, you're pretty much behind. And you're always constantly trying to catch up. So it does catch up to you. And like you said, you took a class and you didn't do well. And all of a sudden, the whole world seemed to be crumbling because you weren't strong enough at that point in time to go ahead and and ask for help and or utilize some of those resources, right? So I want to highlight that because fast forward to last year, you were the co-president of an organization, student organization called SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, the student chapter at UCSD. And you, I'm assuming, found SHIP when you were either a freshman or a sophomore. And I'm assuming you didn't know anything about SHIP, but I want you to walk us through, go back to that freshman year or sophomore year, the first time that you actually found out what is SHIP and how did you figure out that this is probably an organization that I want to belong to? And how did you slowly, progressively immerse yourself, took leadership positions, and ultimately became the pinnacle co-president of that particular student organization at UCSD?
Yeah, so my, as you mentioned, I was co-president, and so the other co-president's name was Diana, and we were the same major. We were walking, I believe we were walking across Warren, and she told me about SHIP. I found out through Diana.
Mhm.
And I believe it's because a lot of the tabling on campus happens on Library Walk, which is directly in front of Geisel Library. And so my class routes took me everywhere around Library Walk. So I never really got to engage, let's say, during the times that a lot of the student orgs were tabling because I was going to class or my walk was just not crossing through there. And so Diana mentioned it to me about SHIP and if she asked if I wanted to go with her. And so I was like, yeah, like I'll go because she explained it was for Hispanic or any student that was in engineering or just maybe wanted to get a sense of belonging or just wanted to be in a nice environment. And so I definitely told her that I would go with her the next time that there was a general body meeting. And so my first GBM, I remember seeing, we walked into Qualcomm and it was really nice because I think that GBM we were able to play games and it was kind of just like a getting to know each other GBM. And so it was a really memorable one for me because it was my first impression. I remember at the time, if I, oh wait, I think Jennifer
Mm.
was president. Yes, I believe so. Um, and kind of just seeing the um, event news or event recap of what they were doing, maybe future events that they were having. Um, it really kind of made me interested in going more to the club. And so from then on, Diana and I would go together to the general body meetings. And eventually we got the courage. We kind of just talked about potentially applying to be a board member because we both liked what SHIP stood for. We both wanted to be more involved. And so I remember I was like, oh yeah, like I'll go for the SHIP junior rep, which also leads freshman committee. And so I knew I wanted to do this because based on my prior experience in high school, we had the Spanish Honor Society, and I was the president for that my senior year. And so it felt like something that I knew I could carry on my experience from there into the freshman committee and like help guide future freshmen, maybe through what I experienced. As I mentioned, I didn't pass a class my first quarter, and I also experienced imposter syndrome. It was my first time moving away from my family. I really felt like I had made a deep connection with that transition from high school to college. And so I knew that if I could give it back in any way, it would help, it would make me feel happy and it would make me feel like I was making a difference in someone's life. And so I ended up going the SHIP junior route when I applied, and I believe I went unopposed. So I ended up getting the board position as SHIP junior rep. And freshman committee was my, I remember I had so much fun with it. I had a Bad Bunny theme for the meetings, and I was just trying to make it as enjoyable as possible for the people joining. And after that, I wanted to take a smaller leadership position just because I knew I was going to be in my junior year of college, and I wanted to make sure I was able to focus on my academics, but also be actively involved with SHIP. And so I went to be a public relations chair, and this position was still really important, but I think because I didn't have to plan meetings for every 2 weeks, or I didn't have to be exactly on the front end of hosting um, maybe a social or hosting a study jam, I was able to work it through my own um, agenda. And so I was the public relations chair. I was managing the Instagram. I was making flyers for all of our committees. I was managing our website. And so that was my experience throughout my junior year. And then that ultimately led up to my senior year, where I knew I wanted to be a bigger part of what the behind the scenes of SHIP at UCSD. I wanted to expose more people to SHIP just because it had done so much for me that I wanted to give that to someone else. And so going towards co-president because I really saw myself in that position, and I wanted to leave a positive impact if it was going to be my last year here at UCSD, and also being part of SHIP at UCSD.
Okay, awesome. So we
I
will
think it
pause right there
froze.
because I gotta ask you, when you're actually stepping into that co-presidency, you have this mindset of, okay, I'm probably gonna do this. This is what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be great. The goals, you have different expectations, but I want you to walk us through the expectations versus the reality of the position when you're actually in there, right? So you're prepping the summer of that you're a rising senior. You have your team, you have your new board, and you're prepping for it along with Diana, and you're saying, okay, this is what we're gonna do. So that those are your expectations. What are the expectations versus the reality of the position now that you've gone through that?
I would say one of the first expectations that I had was that because our previous president, so my Diana and I's first year being co-presidents was the first year that UCSD had co-presidents at all, if I remember correctly. I think every year before then it was just one president. And so I assumed that the workload would be less because there were two of us. There were two of us, but I feel like the reality was that even though there were two of us, there was still a lot of work to be done, divided amongst the both of us. So I give kudos to all those presidents that, have to take in all that responsibility. It was, if it's a lot for two people, I can't imagine how it would be a lot for just one person. So yeah, I give kudos to those. And so I think the workload definitely, I found myself on certain days, especially when it came to general body meetings, or maybe helping out with any events that were going on with our board officers. So if they needed my help, I would always be there, whether it was a social or maybe it was outreach. If they needed to go get some supplies, I would go with them. Or if it was just to go give support and show up for the meetings, I would make time in my day to attend those meetings as much as I could. And so reality where I did think that I'd be able to maybe not have as much workload as just one president would. But I think even then, because we were wanting to do so much with the chapter, it just increased our workload in general. And then I would say also with co-presidency, I didn't think I would be able to host my own meetings, because that is something that I really missed from freshman committee, was being on the front end and maybe planning a meeting based on this topic that I really wanted people to learn about, or maybe just planning like a study jam. But what I realized was that reality was that I could do that, and I ended up doing that by maybe hosting a Qualcomm tour. I remember I was able to host an on-site Qualcomm tour, and I was also able to collaborate with you and have Northrop Grumman come to do a GD&T workshop. And I know that from these two experiences, I was able to receive a lot of positive feedback, and a lot of people learned a great amount from these experiences. So being able to still be on quote unquote the front end of our chapter, it was really nice to feel that feeling again. And so it's not all about just papers and like meetings. It's also being actively involved with the chapter to make sure that you're you're seeing what the impact is. You know, you always want to see what you're working for and what you're working towards is being achieved. And I think those would be some expectations versus reality where I didn't know what to expect going into co-presidency and now ending co-presidency. It's been a lot, but I think for the most part, Dana and I worked really well, and we were able to achieve a lot of what we wanted to, whether it came to national convention, planning GBMs, or an increase in general body members. I think we had a really successful year.
So obviously when you started, you had this expectation and ideals of what it was going to be like. Any advice that you wish you had before you actually entered into the position, like a heads up of sorts?
I would say something that I learned throughout the year would be making sure that each event is just as memorable as the one before. And I think also kind of letting your board know to make those connections with the new members, because something that I know our chapter struggled with prior, and maybe it could still be worked on to this day, is retention. A lot of people maybe just come and go, and some people do stay. And I think that's really one of the bigger targets that we want, or that Deanna and I and our entire chapter wanted to achieve, which was to keep more people in the chapter and like have them see the long-term benefits. And so advice I would say that I wish I would have gotten was to make sure if you see like a familiar face, or if you see someone through campus, kind of just like reaching out to them and showing them that you remember them. I think this is just like a general thing, not maybe related exactly to co-presidency, but as a co-president, you know, you are the face of the chapter. And so um, making sure you're welcoming and you're being as yeah just being reflective of what the chapter is and what the chapter wants to be. I think that would be some advice that I would give out and would have wanted to receive, because at the end of the day, if you're speaking to maybe like someone from the university department and you want to make a good impression on what SHIP is, you have that ability because you are co-president, and being able to take things into your hands in that level is something that works really well when you want your chapter to go forward and have more opportunities within the university level.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot that is involved in being a president or the face of the organization, right? It's not just doing behind the scenes, but you highlighted some of it. You know, going, making time for your subcommittees, your other members, their meetings, be present, at least show up for like 5-10 minutes, say hello, at least greet some of the people when you're walking on campus. You know, if you see somebody that you remember, you might not remember their name, but you say, hey, how's it going? I saw you at one of the meetings. I saw you way at the back, or thank you for coming. Any highlights or any feedback that you have? And all of a sudden that person's like, oh, they remember who I am. It might be more prone to actually go back, right? I want to ask you, you mentioned that, you know, you were happy about coordinating the actual Qualcomm tour, and also you and I worked on getting the GD&T workshop going. But is there something specific that you are proud, or some achievement that you are proud that you actually achieved as co-president, other than those two?
I would say I have two. We definitely saw, as we were doing our reports and just analyzing the general body meeting data, I did notice that there was a really big increase in attendance compared to last year. I believe our first general body meeting of the school year in fall, we reached over 100 members that attended, and that to me was really surreal. It felt like it was setting the tone for what the rest of the school year would be like. So definitely one of the things I am happy and feel accomplished with is the increase in general body members and also just the increase in attendance in our events. I would say that would be one of them, but also bringing back intramural sports. I remember maybe it was last year. We always would say that we were gonna bring back intramural sports, but it never really happened. And so this year, I remember I was like, I am going to sign us up for intramural soccer, co-ed soccer. I was like, I made sure that at least board would be willing to participate in it. That way, we would have a full team. And then from there, we opened it up to the general body members. And I remember everyone would come out. I think we had maybe 20, averaging 20 members per game. And it was just a really great way of bonding with each other outside of maybe studying or just outside of Qualcomm, because we would be outdoors, we would be on the field, everyone would be getting excited when someone would score. It just created a really good environment. And I noticed that from then on, those people that would attend the intramural soccer games were able to form closer friendships. And I think that's really what I liked from intramural soccer and like co-ed intramural soccer. And so we were able to carry this on into our spring quarter with volleyball. And so everyone was really excited. And I know that I hope they continue it on next year because it was a really big hit. We got a lot of interest. We even got people that weren't maybe active in SHPE at UCSD, but they had attended once or twice, or they saw our announcement on Discord, or they saw it on Instagram, and they started coming to GBMs or events after that. So it was a really great way of kind of bringing that exposure out, but also just having fun at the end of the day and being able to take your mind away from school, which can be really stressful just for an hour or two.
Creating that engagement through active sports. Awesome, awesome. So would you say, you're mentioning that that's something that you wish that they could continue carrying on this new school year and possibly future years. But is there anything else that you wish you could have had more time to actually do and or continue implementing as a co-president?
Yeah, I would say maybe as I mentioned, when the company tours, I know it was really eye-opening for me and eye-opening for the people that went. I think it was, besides, I would attend the SHPE professional general body meetings, and in those, sometimes there would be site tours. But I think it's really beneficial for company site tours to happen because you get a new perspective of what your future day in a life could look like, and you get to meet more people. It's a great way to, learn more about a company and also maybe network with people and broaden your network. And so I would say maybe continuing that. I wanted to do more than one because, yeah, I only did one with Qualcomm, but because of the positive feedback, I wish I would have had more time to maybe reach out to other professionals to see if they were open in having hosting us as a company tour.
Yeah, so company tours are awesome, but sometimes they're a little difficult to come by, and there's a little bit of logistics that go behind it. So yes, maybe having a committee or some sort of effort group that focuses on that, right? I know that a lot of student chapters focus on bringing companies for meetings to be presented during their general body or GBMs, general body meetings at school. However, you brought up a good point. There's also the option of having the company, quote unquote, not necessarily host you with a meeting, but just simply give you a tour or behind the scenes or walk you through the campus, and that would be beneficial. But that also comes the logistic aspect of things where you or your chapter, your committee has to finagle, deal with transportation to and from the school, making sure that you have everybody on time, that you arrive on time to the site, and that shows a lot of additional tasking to it. But yeah, that would be a great idea. Well, thank you so much. The next phase, and this is going to be really cool. Rapid fire. This is something that I'll ask you a question, and whatever comes up to your mind, what you're going to answer. This is probably something that you weren't ready for, but this is going to be really cool. All right. So the next phase is questions are. Good leaders always create good leaders. Do you have any individuals you actually look up to? Who are your mentors?
Yeah, I would say on a ship level, within UCSD, Milena Salazar, she was a big inspiration, someone who I would think of when I when I encountered something that I didn't know what to do, or even just good things that she left within our chapter. I wanted to pick those up. So she was one of them within our UCSD chapter. And also, you as well. You were a really big help throughout the school year when it came to any maybe guidance that I needed or mentorship, whether it was ship related or personally related. I would say you and Milena.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate you. And I'm here if you ever need it again, right? Next question is, what's the one question or one ask that you wish people would ask but never do about you?
Whoa, that's a really good question. I guess just like a fun one or like a personal one would be who my favorite artist is, because I
Oh,
feel like I could talk about it for a really long time.
so let me guess.
I would probably start recommending them
Who's
all.
your favorite artist? Is it Bad Bunny?
No, it's not Bad Bunny. No, it's I have two,
Okay.
but it's Karol G. So
Oh, Karol G. Okay. Okay.
kind of
That's
close,
cool.
kind of close.
Awesome. Okay, so that's something, yeah, and that's really good. You know, you wish more people would ask you who your favorite artist is, or get to know you at that level, and that's what this question's really about, right? Try to get to know you more in depth, other than the more common question is how you're doing, right? Or what's your favorite color, or something along those lines. But for the most part, it's just very superficial. But this question is trying to get into who you are and what you really like, and trying to catch the essence of, in this case, Amy Lucas. So that's the whole idea. So, who is your favorite artist is something that you would like people to talk to you more about, so you can showcase. Maybe you have your CD collection or whatever it is that you might have, or if you've been to a couple concerts, you probably have a T-shirt or even a poster, or maybe a picture with Karol G, right? So that would be really cool, a really cool story to relate to the other individuals. That's really good. Awesome, awesome. What do you believe your superpower is?
Oh, okay. I would say something about myself is that I'm a very observant person.
Okay.
So that means I can pick up on little things that maybe it might be like body language, or I like to look around. So if there's like a group conversation happening, it's like I'm very observant where I'll maybe not take lead with the conversation. And I think this really allows me to connect more with someone if maybe I notice that they're not as active in the conversation. It allows me to maybe go up to them or like pull them aside or just make sure that they're doing okay. And I think that's something that I would say is my superpower, because of how observant I can be, I'm able to really make sure that everything's okay with, and like everything's going good, or it just allows me to be really attentive to detail. And I think that that would be my superpower. Or unless you were asking for like a
No, no,
fictional
no,
superpower,
no,
I
no,
I
no.
could also say one of those
That's
if
it.
I wanted to have a.
Yeah, okay, so you're observant. You can definitely see people for what they're doing, but also you bring this up. What do you wish your superpower could be, and why?
Okay, you might say I'm only saying this because of my major, but I wish I could fly. I think flying would be super cool, especially in Wonder Woman. I know that she flies, and that to me, I you would be able to get to places faster, or if you just wanted to de-stress and maybe get a nice view of the ocean or get a nice view of the sunset, you could fly. And so I would say being able to fly would be one of the superpowers I would like.
That's awesome. So being observant is your actual superpower currently, but if you could actually fly, I'm assuming fly without an airplane or fly an airplane, maybe it is within your reach where you can actually to get a pilot license and eventually you'll be able to soar over the sky. So that would be great. Awesome, awesome. Any particular book, movie, or podcast that you believe has made an impact in your life and you wish more people would actually take advantage of it?
Um, yes. So I'm a very big Disney movie person, and I really like the movie Soul. It really takes away like the main message of the movie is to live in the present and really just enjoy everything that you take for granted. And I think that's something that I'm trying to do every day. Because sometimes I find myself maybe not being as grateful as, or maybe just kind of ignoring the little things. But I think that at the end of the day makes a really big difference in how you are and like how you show up for other people. And so I would definitely recommend people to see Soul. It really changed my perspective and it makes me hopeful for the future.
Yeah, that's a really good movie actually. It's even though it's an animated film, it has a very deep message, right? It goes through the stages of you're trying to focus on, hey, maybe I could do this, et cetera, but the person, the main character, is not necessarily living in the moment and being grateful for what they have, but they are wishing, oh, if I had this, I would be happy, versus trying to be happy within their realm and reality at that point. So that's a really, really, really good point. And because of that, I think the movie, from what I remember, or at least the message that I got, is you lose some of that present activity that should be engaged with you and you let it go by the sideway, right? Versus taking it all in and actually taking advantage of it and being in that moment. So that's a really, really good perspective. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Soul. It's a Disney Pixar movie. I think that's what it is. It came out maybe a couple years ago, 5 years ago or so. I could be wrong, but that's more or less when it came out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. Next question is, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success would be doing something that maybe being able to accomplish something that you struggled with or maybe thought you couldn't achieve, but ending up on the other side and looking back and being proud of what you accomplished or being proud of yourself that you were able to get past that situation that you once thought maybe you couldn't do or that you were struggling with.
Awesome. So being persistent and going through the motions and actually accomplishing it and being able to look back and being grateful for that, that's your definition of success. That's awesome. For this next question, I want you to close your eyes, right? And for this, I want you to envision that moment when you're sitting with your mom, right? And all of a sudden she's telling you, Mija, this is how I envision your future. You're gonna be successful. You're gonna go to college. Remember those words that actually came out of her mouth, and how all of a sudden your mind is focused and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know my mom had so many hopes and so many strategy and future plans for me. This is the way that I'm going to go now. I want you to, right now, the Amy Lucas, you're gonna be able to go back to that moment. And as soon as you open that car door, little Amy Lucas is coming out and you're gonna give her a huge hug and you're gonna tell her, hey, I only have a minute or two, but I'm going to share with you 3 pieces of advice that are going to make you successful in your path. Can you open your eyes and tell us what those 3 pieces of advice are, Amy?
I would say the first one would be always, always be grateful for your family. I think they're going to be your biggest supporters, and they're going to be what really helps you through the next 10 years. And 2 would be always ask questions. I think I see this in myself now, even. I always like to ask why. And even when I was in elementary school, my mom would always laugh because the teachers would be like, yeah, like she's always asking why when I'm like explaining a topic, or she's just always asking why, like why this, why that. And so always like stay curious. I think that's a really good second piece of advice. And the third one would be to believe in yourself, because maybe you're your hardest critic. I think you're your own hardest critic. And if other people can see this potential in you, it's because you're capable of it. And you just have to prove it to yourself. And that will start with you believing in yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. So, cherishing your family, right? Being curious and asking why, and believing in yourself. Those are the 3 pieces of advice we got from you. That's awesome. Congratulations. Yes. Is there anything else that you want to share with us at this point that maybe we didn't cover?
I guess, like, yeah, if I could give maybe any advice to someone that's still pretty early on in college, I would say to join as many clubs, like student orgs, as you can. Project teams also, they give really good experience. And also, this is something that I try and give back now to anyone that might be in their first or second year. Apply to those internships, even if you think like you might not get it. It never hurts to try. I think the worst thing, something that I've learned is it never hurts to ask, because it's better to maybe ask. And if they say no, they say no. But if you never ask, then you never really know what could happen. And so make sure to take the opportunities that are in front of you. And that would be something that I would say to maybe anyone, even if they're in high school, but primarily if they're in their first or second year of college. Definitely take that step forward and put yourself out there for those opportunities.
Thank you. Great advice. Great advice. With that, I'd like to acknowledge you for, completing your degree with structural engineering. I'd like to acknowledge you for your persistence and going through UCSD, the quarter system. I'd like to acknowledge you for your love of the family that you have at home, right? And also the love of the ship familia that you have made at UCSD. I'd like to acknowledge you for the leadership that you showed and the support system that you created within being the co-president at SHPE UCSD. So with that, thank you so much. Congratulations for getting a full-time position with Collins. Your career's just about to get started and you're going to do great things. So with that, thank you so much. Really enjoy the conversation, Amy. Have a wonderful one. Thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this incredible conversation with Amy Lucas. Please connect with her at her social media and reach out with any questions. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.